Hey folks, Matthew Fetcher and AudioKit Pro just released a new 16-bit Super Nintendo inspired synth. It's SNESynth. Today we're going to explore the iconic sounds of the Super Nintendo, we'll play through a bunch of presets, and finally we'll talk about what makes this app, well, super. Let's get started.
Whoa, hold on. AudioKit Pro already released the ultimate 16-bit synth, SAGA Synth. The sounds in it came from the Genesis's built-in YM2612 FM synthesis chip. Blast processing. You see, the Genesis actually generates the audio like a synthesizer, while the SNES plays back audio samples like a cheap Casio keyboard. I guess it's true what they say. Genesis does what Nintendo don't.
In the 80s and 90s, the console wars were in full swing. The Genesis, or Mega Drive depending on your region, was pitted against the Nintendo Entertainment System. And while the technical specs of the Genesis were better than the NES in every conceivable way, the NES games were just fun. Mario, Mega Man, Punch-Out, Zelda. The NES had a robust library, and consumers, aka mom and dad, were hesitant to shell out for a new console and games. When the Super NES launched, it leveled the playing field. Sometimes the same game would launch on both consoles, allowing us to see a side-by-side comparison like Mortal Kombat. Finish him. I have a lot more to say on this subject, but let's check out the app before I go full dork mode. If you're familiar with AudioKit Pro apps, a lot of this will look familiar. On our main screen we have a visualizer and audio effects, including a low-pass filter and reverb that I use most often. On the oscillator tab there are two layers with over 200 sample-based instruments and optional analog-style generated waveforms. Those were first introduced in King of Bass, and they make this a true synth hybrid. Unlike King of Bass, SNESynth is polyphonic, and I think it is now setting the groundwork for a Synth 1 style AUV3. That would be really cool. Next we have our sequencer tab that was first introduced in SAGA Synth with the help of Gem OK, and finally a Pro tab with two mappable LFOs and more effects. Now let's hear some of the presets. I'll play through some of my favorites from the starter bank, the sound designer's banks, and finally I'll play some presets I made for the app. love the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis for different reasons. For fast-paced, gritty gameplay, beat-em-ups, and RPGs, I go for the Genesis. For excellent platformers and, well, more beat-em-ups and RPGs, I go for the Super Nintendo. I guess the console experience really comes down to the quality of the games. As for the audio, that's a different story. The Genesis had two onboard synth chips, the YM2612 6-channel FM chip and the SN76489 pulse and noise generator chip. Also on the cartridges, developers could store limited PCM audio samples for things like the snare drum in Sonic the Hedgehog. The SNES, in contrast, used the SSMP audio chip, which made it capable of playing back audio samples. In essence, it operated like a rompler, and romplers, in case you don't know, are functionally simpler to other subtractive synths, but the oscillators are created from the digital representation of recorded sound. Because the SNES uses samples for its instruments, the legality of reusing these sounds is questionable. Whereas the Genesis is generating the sounds like a guitar or a piano might be, the SNES is playing back audio files that have been stretched, looped, pitch shift, etc., but the underlying audio file is potentially copyrighted material. So how does SNESynth get around this issue? Well, since Matthew couldn't sample games themselves, he used the Super MIDI Pack, which samples the onboard sound chip of the SNES. For sounds like the orchestra hits and those Mega Man style guitars, he recorded the original synths game developers created those PCM samples from. It's kind of like an archaeological recreation of all those classic sounds. Let's wrap up by talking about what I really like about this app. You know, if it has anything to do with video games and synthesizers, I'm in. The three things that really sell this app for me are 1, the classic video game sounds, 2, the sheer volume and variety of presets and sounds that come with the app, and 3, how this app is the culmination of what all the previous apps have led to with AudioKit. They've really refined between the app releases and updates all these new features, and it really leads to a great experience whether you're playing it standalone or recording it in something like Logic as an AUV3. From a purely sonic standpoint, I think I still prefer the audio from SAGA Synth, but the addition of the generated waveforms and mappable LFOs make the sound design options more robust in SNESynth. Personally, if you're into retro games and chiptunes, I think you should get them both. They cost less than we used to pay to rent a game at Blockbuster, and the sounds are truly nostalgic. Congratulations to AudioKit Pro on another awesome app launch. I'll have links to everything down below the like button. If you want to learn more about how retro consoles used to make sound, I'll leave a video for that up on the screen. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.